Merry Christmas, everybody, and welcome to the Denver Dzogchen podcast. I'm here once again with Joseph Wagner, and today we have a very special episode, as you can tell. This is our Christmas episode, and there's a few things that we wanted to talk about today. We'd had a few requests to talk about Lord Jambhala, because he's an excellent deity in the Tibetan tradition that has a lot of benefits for modern practitioners, and I know Joe has got a long-term relationship with that deity. Um, and so the spirit of generosity and Jambhala, they come together. And I just was sitting one day and had the thought, Santa Claus is an emanation of Jambhala. And the more I think about it, the more it's really true, right? Like he really has all the qualities, and we'll get into that more. So we thought, let's do a Jambhala Santa Claus Christmas episode. So I think it's a pretty great idea. And welcome, Joe, and please give us a little of your thoughts about all of this.
Hi, Damien. Hello, everyone. Yeah, Merry Christmas. As you can see, we're getting in the Christmas spirit around here in Colorado, even though it was 70 degrees yesterday. Never heard of this. Been here since 1994. Never seen it like this. So I don't know what it means, but it's hard not to enjoy being 70 degrees summer days in the middle of winter. Thank you, Damien, for bringing up this topic, and I'm happy to shoot off my mouth about Lord Jambhala. In fact, as you can see, I got a big tanka of Lord Jambhala that was given to me by one of the most advanced Western practitioners I know, Eric Drew. We've mentioned him before. We should try to get him on the podcast someday. That would be incredible. Uh, he gave that to me when we were traveling together in Tibet. And it's been my companion since then. It's maybe 10 years ago. But even before that, long ago, actually, in the 90s, must have been 95 or 96, I was first introduced to uh, Dzambhala practice. Dzambhala is a wealth deity, the Tibetan form Dzambhala, he's a form of Vaishravana, and there are many wealth deities associated with the Tibetan pantheon, but Dzambhala is the most popular, and he comes in many colors. He has a lot of different moods. There's black Dzambhala, there's white Dzambhala, there's the standard yellow Dzambhala. And I was having some financial difficulties in the 90s, and a friend of mine, Richard Othrior, another person we should actually talk about on the podcast because he was the uh, translator and co-author, I suppose we should say, of the Sadhana of Mahamudra, a very famous Terma revelation of Trungpa Rinpoche. He was present when that was revealed and helped to put that into English, and he became a close friend of mine. I mentioned this to him. I was kind of struggling and moving at the time and unsure what was going to happen. And he said, well, Buddhists have a special relationship with this energy deity that's associated with wealth. His name is Jambhala. I'd never even heard of him at the time. And Richard gave me a reading transmission, a lung, for a reasonably well-known form of Dzambhala, black Dzambhala that came from Guru Chowang originally, one of the five Tibetan kings, and was widely practiced in the Dharmadhatu Sangha, the Chogyam Trungpa Sangha, because Dilgo Khyentse had given that transmission at the time of the passing of Trungpa Rinpoche. So there's a little background. And Richard gave me this transmission, and they had, as they do in all things having to do with Vajradhatu, they had put a beautiful little book together, and it had all the instructions and how you set up the shrine and everything. And it's a water pouring practice of Dzambhala where you praise Lord Dzambhala. It's a sadhana, so there's all the standard parts, refuge and bodhichitta and a visualization. But the main activity is to say the mantra, and while you do that, you pour water over a small statue of Lord Dzambhala. The history of Dzambhala is such that he likes to be bathed and or submerged in water in some cases. And so many practitioners will have a little shrine or a little dish where there's a statue of Dzambhala that they keep submerged in water to accumulate the yang energy, the wealth energy. And then you can also do these various sadhana practices where you pour the water over the head of Jambhala, where you say his mantra and do a special visualization. So I had never done anything like that. I started to do it, and it's a long time ago. You're not supposed to talk about signs, but I'm happy to share this that happened almost immediately. Out of nowhere, I got a check in the mail from the IRS, not the best check writers, saying, "Oh, you overpaid your taxes last year, and so here's $600," which at the time was a huge amount of money and very much needed during this, transition I was making down to Denver. And it seemed like I was like, wow, like this really works. And I've become a very big fan of Lord Jambal. I feel like he's taken me under his wing and he's provided so much in my life. So yeah, I strongly recommend that all of our listeners who are interested in this kind of thing should supplicate Lord Jambala, take him into their mandala and praise him, and it certainly makes life easier when he's on your side. So that's just a little bit of background of my experience.
Yeah. And so, very, very briefly, maybe we can talk about. So, his activity is the enriching activity. We've talked about the
Mm.
four activities, and so it's one that often gets neglected. There's a lot of wrathful deities, and then everybody's familiar with Tara and Chenrezig, and so not everybody has an enriching practice or a connection
Mm.
to an enriching deity. Maybe Manjushri, but that's a little more like enrichment of wisdom, which is a slightly different emphasis. So it's so great to bring in this quality and aspect into our practice. And so, as I was saying before, there's this connection to Christmas, and what is the source of wealth? What is the source of enrichment? Is generosity. It is by giving, right? We offer to Jambhala because energy is kind of like a bathtub, like if you pull the water towards you, it all goes away. If you push it away from you, it all comes towards you.
Nicely
And
said.
and so we want to push away, and so an offering practice like this is pushing away. It's generosity, and our culture already has this in it. And in some ways, Christmas can be kind of commercial and materialistic, and as a Buddhist it can be hard to know what to do with these seasons and holidays and all of this, and you can feel a little bit disconnected from them. Well, ever since I had that thought that Santa Claus is an emanation of Jambhala, then I have now much more affection, a willingness to feel affection for Santa like I had when I was a kid.
Wow.
And I was like, really, he is this same spirit, and it's so positive, And I was thinking, like, what would Garchen Rinpoche say? And he would love this, right? Because he's always saying it's just about love, it's just about generosity, it's just about the spirit, right? And so we as practitioners can secretly supplicate Santa as Jambhala. Whenever we see Santa Claus, we can honor Jambhala in this form. And by doing this, really connect ourselves to the season, increase the generosity, increase the good natured things behind that symbol in our culture. We all everyone who's born here has a connection already. So this is in some ways, one of the hard things as Tibetan Buddhist practitioners is we were not usually brought up in it. And so we don't have these deep childhood roots. This is one thing we can have really deep childhood roots. And the more I thought about it, Jambal is a yaksha, right? Like he comes from this class of being. They're also kind of like manufacturers to some degree, which made
Mm.
me think of the elves, right? So they're like
I
his
love it.
elves are the yakshas that make the toys.
I love it.
And he's a protection for children, and he's pulled by 9 reindeer, which I thought the 9 yanas. It's 8 without Rudolph and 9 with Rudolph, so eightfold path, and you got 9 yanas. So there's a lot of stuff that just started like coming to me that I was like, this is really going to work. So in the spirit of Christmas, Denver Dzogchen offers you this thought that you could think of Santa Claus as Jambhala and start to bring this enriching practice into the season. And yeah, so Joe, tell me some more of your thoughts about all of this.
I have to say, not to praise our group too much and the members of our group, but this to me seemed like a pure vision. I had never thought of this before. I have never come across anyone thinking about this. And I want to say, on behalf of everyone who listens to this podcast, thank you, Damien, because as a Buddhist, I mean, I would like to say this is the first Christmas tree I think I've had in my adult life. My parents, they're still around, thank goodness, and they have a Christmas tree, and so forth. But I became a Buddhist many, many years ago, and I kind of felt it was my duty not to practice these Christian things. But although Christmas is very much Christian, Christmas trees, Santa, this kind of association is actually pagan. It has nothing to do with Christianity, except its long association. And I feel quite healed as a former Catholic, grew up in a Catholic household, by this idea that secretly the wealth god Jambhala, the wealth deity energy, which appears for Buddhists as Jambhala and for, different sects in different ways, has snuck into the Christian faith. And this allows us to sort of do two things at once, right? We can practice our Buddhist faith while being solid members of the community, so to speak, and being part of this Christmas spirit. I really praise you, Damien. I really mean it. This is amazing. An amazing insight. And the fact that you said, it just kept coming to the nine yanas, reindeer. We got Rudolph, his nose lights up, the light that's associated with, of course, the highest teachings of the Nyingma school. He draws the sleigh. It's the highest. It's very cool, and it fits on many levels. I think it's very inspired. So I appreciate it. I wanted to say that first of all. But uh, it's really the tradition of Buddhism to adopt local deities, to tame them, so to speak, sometimes in a forcible way, like Guru Padmasambhava did, but to bring them into the fold of our faith. And here's a way that your average Westerner who was probably brought up Christian or Jewish, there's so many Jews out there, can bring this somewhat commercialized or overly commercialized notion of Christmas into their own faith and imagine themselves as a form of Jambhala when they put the presents under the tree. They act as Santa. I think this is amazing. And of course, I mean, not giving away any secrets, but what, of course, is the mantra of Lord Jambhala in the form of Santa, Damien?
Ho, ho, ho.
Think about it. I mean, this really blew my mind. The mantra is ho, ho, ho. I can't freaking believe this. I think it's awesome. So I encourage all of our listeners to, when you see representations of Santa, when you see Christmas trees, when you see presents, when you give presents, when you talk to your children or your nieces and nephews or whatever about the spirit of Christmas and you assume that role, you really visualize yourself as Jambhala in this red outfit, this, red, yellow outfit, this richness, and you are acting as Jambhala for all these people. Because, as Damien pointed out, like the bathtub, the way that we magnetize wealth is through generosity, which is, of course, the most important of the paramitas for us, is this generosity. And in the spirit of Christmas, generosity is everything. So we don't just do it by giving gifts, but we also do it by letting people in when they're trying to get in the lane. This happened to me earlier. We can say the mantra and we can act as Jambhala. Right then, we can put the brakes on, back it off, wave the person in and say, ho, ho, ho. And we're actually combining, we're doing the ultimate Vajrayana activity. Just like when the teachings came to Tibet, they didn't just say, oh, all that stuff you've been practicing, all that Bunpo traditional stuff, that doesn't mean anything. We got this new thing. They said, oh, yeah, those deities that you worship, they're part of our pantheon. They hold these places. And here we have the wealth deity in our real lives. Amazing. And you mentioned Garchen Rinpoche. You've got your Santa hat on. Garchen Rinpoche, there are quite a few pictures floating around of Garchen Rinpoche in a Santa hat. He is the ultimate form of Santa in that he gives these wish-fulfilling jewel-like teachings to us on how we can be liberated, how we can experience bliss, how we can bring benefit to ourselves and others. So I think it's quite an inspired thing. I've been really thinking a lot about it, and it really it healed something in me and heals something in me to see, we're doing it in the West. We're doing it. It's not just oh, well, we participate in this because it's a cultural thing or our kids like it or whatever. Now we can do it with our whole hearts. So I think it's awesome. I mean, yeah, I'll leave it there, but I do want to say more about Jambhala generally. But thank you, Damien. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, and so like we think about when Guru Rinpoche had to tame the spirits of Tibet, part of the reason he had to so forcefully do that is because a lot of those deities, they still had a relationship of animal sacrifices and a lot of things that were not pretty. But when you look at Jesus or Mary or Santa, they're not like that. Like they're already the spirit of love, And Garchen Rinpoche has said this many times. He said that Mother Mary is definitely Tara, and he said that the symbol of Mary was actually even better because she was holding the baby, which
Mhm.
he said, which is exactly what Tara does. And holding the baby Jesus is, he said, almost a more overt symbol of Tara. So when we see Mary, we can, and I've seen the Dalai Lama and Garchen Rinpoche all fold their hands when they say Jesus or Mary. The Bodhisattva symbols, the spirit of love, there's already goodness in all of these symbols. It's already the spirit of love and generosity is already in there. So there's no contradiction. These are
Totally
completely
agree.
Bodhisattva energies. And I think we can feel totally comfortable allowing for these things to be part of our experience because they are, whether we like it or not. And having an antagonistic experience towards them isn't helpful for our path. And so, yeah, to just embrace it. And you can, I've started every night leaving a little cup of milk and cookies. And you can do this so already obvious, right? You can make your offering to Santa Dzambhala and you can have this relationship more fostered, and we can actually increase the energy of what's best about Santa in our
Totally.
country by doing this. We can enhance it because I guarantee Jambal is stoked. He's like,
No
it's
question.
the pure energy that we're putting into it with an understanding of emptiness, with an understanding of love and compassion, will enhance this further and make benefit our country greatly. If practitioners started doing this, it would really
So
help.
good. Yeah, and in fact, I mean, it already exists. The form of Santa, he's a big guy. He's got a bag over his shoulder that exists in China as Hote, a great Chinese monk who I don't know if you can see him, but there's a statue up here that I brought back from Taiwan many years ago of Hote. Always got a smile. Kids love him. He's got a bag. What's in the bag? Gifts. Who are the gifts for? Kids. It's the same thing. And it's the same thing with us in this. And as for your thoughts about Tara and so forth, it's really important to recognize this because then we don't have in our hearts like pushing away Mary or whatever that whole cult that we might have grown up with or our family members apart. We can be like, I'm totally into this. I was just took a trip to France and I was in the Notre Dame Cathedral, and we went to the Shrine of Mary, and we offered lamps, in exactly the same way, and it felt totally good. It felt amazing. In fact, I had quite a profound experience. It's the same energy. For Buddhists, she appears as Tara. For Chinese, she appears as Avalokiteshvara. For us, she appears as Mary. How convenient. How convenient. In fact, a friend of mine, he's American, uh, student of Tolkien, he married a Brazilian woman many years ago, and her mother was a great devotee of Mary. And before her mother's death, they were down there. She had a big collection of Mary statues. She gave this beautiful, you know, statue to my friend David, and he immediately was like, "This is Tara," and he took that statue to Kathmandu when I was having to be there, and we found a local monk who fills statues, and as soon as he saw it, he was like, "Oh, it's Tara." And I thought, wow, even they recognize it. It's like everybody gets it. But sometimes, because we're converts, in most cases, most Buddhists in America are converts. They didn't grow up in a Buddhist household or whatever. They feel like, oh, I got to turn away from that. And that is an important part of the path, to make a distinction between before and now. But as you become more mature in your path, you can come back to embracing all these forms as representations. And what is that at its heart? Pure vision, which is the hallmark of the Vajrayana anyway, right? Hallmark of the Hinayana or Theravada teachings is renunciation. Hallmark of the Mahayana teachings as a whole is bodhicitta. And hallmark of Vajrayana is pure vision. So when you can embrace all this as pure vision, then things work much better. I was recently with my partner in the Denver Botanical Gardens where they have a giant light show on around the holidays, and I thought it was almost psychedelic in its power. It was incredible, and the whole spirit of everyone being happy and just being psyched up and just moving toward this special holiday. Why not embrace that energy? We don't have to fight that. We can use that to enhance our practice. And when we even, in a secret way, when we say ho, 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 we're actually supplicating Lord Jambhala, which is good for us and good for everyone else. I did want to say one other small thing about Jambhala practice generally, for those of you out there who are Vajrayanists. Uh, it's really important, I think, for all of us to develop a relationship with this particular energy. Unfortunately or fortunately, however you see it, the world runs on money. Money is just energy, right? And we need that energy flowing in our lives. We need it flowing toward us. We need it flowing away from us, right? It's just like the bathtub. You can't one way, the other way, it's all good. And rather than seeing Christmas as like, I'm getting killed here, my credit card bills are going up, we just think, every present I buy, everything I do at this holiday season, every tin of cookies is an offering. It's an offering to that which is pure in our environment. It's an offering to Jambhala, and it's an offering from Jambhala. And making this, it just makes this link with this wealth energy. We want that flowing in our lives, right? Because the fact is, if you don't have any money, all you can think about is money. If you have money, you can think about other things. So it's really important. And I strongly recommend all practitioners to attempt to receive Wang, Lung, and Tree for Jambhala practices and to do that regularly. It stirs that energy. It's been a blessing in me. I know it's been a blessing in Damien's life and in other practitioners I know. Some people have gone from absolutely nowhere to great deals of wealth. So it can happen. It depends on your karmic roots. But whether you have good connection with money and it comes easily or not, if you do the practice a lot, you develop that merit because you're making that offering, right? It's all about generosity in past lives. And then we can do that generosity in this life. And we do it pouring the water over the statue. We do it by saying the mantra. We do it by being generous in every area of our life. And if we look at opportunities to be generous, like holding the door for someone, any kind of thing, like saying thank you, like all this sort of stuff. When I let that person in today in the traffic, they did something that these days is more and more rare. They waved. They said
Mm-hmm.
thank you. And so there was like a real energy exchange there. I'm still thinking about it, right? So we can be that for everyone in our field. And I, again, thank you, Damien, for bringing this up because wow, I've got my mind blown. That's not that common. So thanks.
Well, and this is, I was a comparative religion major in college, and I've always had this deep appreciation for many religions, but never quite knew how to navigate that. In fact, one of my lamas told me you need to be sure and be very inclusive towards all religions and all this. But you can feel like, well, am I like, you don't want to become that Western thing where you're just mixing them, right? Because that
Yeah.
obviously isn't right either. So, what's the main fundamental difference? It's the view, right? It's the approach, right? Generosity can be important for all kinds of reasons. But when we have generosity, we just and wealth practices, we're doing it to attain enlightenment. We want the financial conditions to practice. We want
Mm.
the financial conditions to let go mentally. We want the financial conditions to benefit those around us. So we have this outer, inner, and secret level, the outer level of giving objects, the inner level of contentment and satisfaction,
Mm.
and the secret level of just freedom from attachment altogether. And these, when we bring that view into any of our relationships to other religions, then they become Buddhist, as it were, because our view is correct. It does so. The form doesn't matter as much. What we want to avoid doing, and please correct me and speak on this. The danger would be to shift views to other religions' views, because the views of being eternalist usually is a shift, is the risk. And so as long as we're clear about the view and our motivation and we maintain the bodhicitta motivation, that protects us. Like Garchner Rinpoche said something that was really helpful for me. Somebody asked about the danger of the alaya, right? There's this fear people have if they're doing like high levels of meditation that they could get like trapped in a kind of addiction to a meditative state, which is like a God realm, and that if you did it wrong, that they talk about that in some of the texts. And he said, as long as you have bodhicitta, you will never go wrong. And so I think that is the thing, is just keeping our eyes on enlightenment. And then whether we want a relationship that's good, or we want to have more money, or we want to have a nice house, or whatever, as long as it's supporting us on our path and we're using it on our path, then it all becomes good. It's all good, as
That's
David said.
exactly right. Yeah. So Mantabhadra, all good.
Yeah.
I think you're exactly right. I mean, the in our school, the Vajrayana as a whole, Buddhism as a whole, the union of emptiness and awareness is the highest view. So we want to maintain that, right? And how does emptiness manifest when it's at its best? As love. So the union of emptiness, seeing things as impermanent, having no center, being pure of all kinds of solidity, right? Mixing that with this heart, the Christmas spirit, to come back to that, which is love for everyone, inclusiveness, right? Inclusiveness, no one excluded, everyone welcome. This kind of energy is what our world's lacking, and it's what we have to offer, and it's also the path. So it doesn't matter, I used to feel very strange. My parents would say, like, let's go to mass on Christmas. I would be like, I do not go back. Now I think, great, let's do it. I'm happy to do it, right? And it's all about your view. The view just needs to be the same view that we practice in meditation: openness. And what is openness? Inclusivity, right? Mind like the sky means it holds everything that arises. And most religions have at their core all the same principles. So it's not like we have to be like, that one's wrong and that one's wrong. I think it's not good for anyone to have that. Of course, there are distinctions. We have to know those. We have to abide by those. But most of the time, it's not that important. Our friend Father Tiso, who's been on this podcast, the guy is a full-on Catholic. He's a Catholic priest. I think he's a greater Bodhisattva than almost any Buddhist I've ever met. He's doing great. He doesn't need to change anything. He's doing good. That kind of energy, right? So I think in this way, what you're saying is, of course, 100% correct. And I do, as we're about to close, thank you for bringing this up, for bringing this out of the Dharmakaya, a way for us to embrace something we can't get away from and make it into the path. Isn't that the secret of Vajrayana? How cool.
Yeah. And there's, and I was even thinking about the merit that sustains the United States of America. How much of that merit is sustained by the Christmas ritual? Every year, everyone getting together and purchasing gifts for others. Maybe a huge percentage of America's success is this annual ritual of generosity. These things are important. We don't want to get rid of them. They foster something, the merit of our country is a thing. And I think something we need right now. It may not be doing so well. So to further foster the power of this act of generosity, I think, is nothing but good. And especially to think of kids and to offer to kids, and to enhance their joy. That is also a very meritorious thing to have in our hearts. So I think there's all good things in this, and obviously this can extrapolate to so many different things that we have in our lives, experiences of other people and their other traditions. And as we try to, our country is so bifurcated and broken right now, anything that brings us together and helps us connect is a good thing. And so I think this is a perfect opportunity. And as always, thank you for watching this podcast. It's happy to coming up on the new year here, and another whole year of doing this is really amazing. And it wouldn't be without all of you listening and participating and showing us that it's worthwhile for Joe and I to keep doing these. So we really appreciate you, and I hope that you find this stuff inspiring. And if you do, please let us know. We read all those comments, and I try to respond to them. And so, yeah, thank you so much. And please go forward into the new year and into these holidays with the spirit of deep generosity, and know that all that you're doing for the holidays, going to be with a family that can be difficult, is your practice of patience. You're buying them gifts is the practice of generosity. The 6 paramitas are all available to just put right into this situation. So let's do it, and let's have a great holiday. Thank you so much. Thank you, Joe. And
Thank
we will
you.
see you
Merry
next time.
Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas.